Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live. I'm on Patreon today and discussing with you guys about a message that I shared on our channel called 5 Minutes Left. This is how did Sarah and Abraham really look? And I want to clarify, we're going to go a little deeper here on Patreon than what I did on 5 Minutes Left, but I do want to clarify that this is definitely by no means a racist or is there by any means an implication of a racial superiority. I do suggest an alternative version because we don't have the access to the actual fragment. If you go to, for example, to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you go to the 1Q20, which is the Genesis fragments, we'll see that we have all kinds of fragments, but they never put all the fragments there for the public to see. That's very frustrating for me that we don't have access to all the fragments, but you get these little pieces here. Now, the Genesis Apocryphon is written in the Aramaic language, although it does use Hebrew-styled letters. It's still spoken in the Aramaic language at that time, which also kind of helps bolster the idea that Aramaic was a predominantly spoken language during the days of Jesus, just using Hebrew letters. Much like what they do in Europe, the Ashkenazi, they were using Yiddish, but they used Hebrew letters for a language that was very Germanic in nature. That's kind of the way this was here as well. So when we go back into this, I want to just share with you, though, like I said, they don't always give you everything. And of course, column 20, where I go into the part about how Abraham and Sarah looked, mainly Sarah, when the king came to her, this is going to be a very interesting passage because you're going to see that Sarah has a totally different look than what anybody ever thought about. And it also is going to bring to mind whether or not was the right translation used. Now, if I looked at the context of it, I could see that perhaps it is correct in the Aramaic translation, but there is a possibility of a different translation as well. And without being able to see the original language there, it kind of makes it hard. I'm going to start off, though, and I actually have Genesis 12:12 up as well, because I've shared with you before how that God said to Abraham, I will bless those that bless you, curse those that curse you. Okay? Now, and I said that that was fulfilled in the Pharaoh of Egypt. And oddly enough, we never truly see the way that's fulfilled, with the exception of the Genesis in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they call it an apocryphon. And I really take issue with that because to me it is the oldest known version of the Genesis account, although it's not complete. And we get a lot of information that we just do not have in our own Genesis. So to me, it should not be Apocryphon. It should be the real Genesis, is what it should be titled. So here we have here, Abraham is speaking here, and I was going to the south of Moreh and went until I reached Hebron, and for this Hebron was built, and I lived there for 2 years. Now there was a famine in the land, and I heard that wheat, and there's a blank spot in Egypt. So I set out into Egypt, a lot of little blank spots there. I reached the Carmel River, the heads of the river. I said to my wife, there's a blank spot, until now we have been within our land. So I crossed over the 7 heads of this river, which afterwards enters into the great Sea of Salt, or the Dead Sea, we call it today, the Sea of Salt. And after this I said, now we have left our land and entered into the land of the sons of Ham, the land of Egypt. So what we call the modern state of Israel today, according to Abraham, this was all Egyptian land. It was not Abraham's ancestral land. That's something that we often overlook. He said, "Now I, Abram, dreamt a dream in the night of my approach to the land of Egypt, and I saw in my dream that there were a single cedar and a single date tree." All right, now we're going to continue on with the reading of this. "And a palm having sprouted together from one root, and sons of humankind came seeking to cut down the uproot the cedar, thereby leaving the date palm by itself." Now, I find this a bit interesting that he calls it the sons of humankind. All right. Now, they're going to tell you 103. We can go down here. That is men, but it's Enosh is the word that is used there. If you go back, let's see. 103, 15. Here it is right there. If you can see that little hand moving. Aleph, Nun, Vav, Shin, Anash, which is very similar to that of the Hebrew language there. Also uses a similar word for mankind. But he says there that the palm having sprouted together from one root, and the sons of mankind came seeking to cut down and uproot the cedar, thereby leaving the date and the palm by itself. This is one of the reasons why I actually explore an alternative translation when we get to the description of Sarah, because Abraham seems to put these sons of mankind in a different category than he and Sarah. Now, there's something I want you to notice too, though. They come from one root, and that's because they both share the same father. They have a different mother, but they have the exact same father. And if you think about it, Adam and Eve, when they were first created, God created Adam and took from his side and made Eve. So in essence, the same father there brought forth. So in a similitude, Abraham and Sarah are a type of Adam and Eve. And Sarah is recorded as having a wisdom beyond any of that of any woman on the earth. And Eve was also, according to several different works, including those of what they would consider apocrypha works or Gnostic works, that Eve was truly a very wise woman. It says on here, but the date palm cried out and said, "Do not cut down the cedar, for the two of us are sprung from one root." So the cedar was left on account of the date palm. Isn't that fascinating? They came from one root, but they're two different types of trees. "And they did not cut it down. Then I awoke out of the night from my sleep, and I said to my wife Sarah, I dreamt a dream, and from this dream I am afraid. And she said to me, Tell me your dream so that I may know about it. So I began to tell her this dream, and I said to her, they will seek to kill me, but to spare you. Yet this is all the kindness." And we get into a longer of a blank spot from there. Now, let me see where we get here. That's also the same one. We'll drop that one out. Let's go back over here. Now, we're going to go into the longer caption of this now. Let's see. So, anyway, when they go down, and this is a little further into all of this, when Abraham does go down for 5 years, he dwells in the land before Pharaoh's princes begin to discover the beauty, and that's actually a Harkanash, begins to discover the beauty of Sarah and reports back to Pharaoh about her beauty. It says, "Her beauty surpasses that of all women with her beauty. She soars above them all, and alongside all this beauty she possesses great wisdom, and her handiwork is excellent." Now when the king heard the words of Harkamash, the words of the two companions that the three of them spoke as one, he greatly desired her and sent someone quickly to take her. And when he saw her, he was dumbfounded by all of her beauty, and took her for himself as a wife. And he also sought to kill me. But Sarah said to the king, he is my brother, so that I would be negotiating on her behalf. Thus I, Abraham, was spared because of her, and I was not killed, I, Abram. Now, remember, and I'm going to come back to this in just a moment, but don't forget what God said to Abraham. And this is when he was only called Abram, like what we see in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless you and make thee a great name, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them. And him that curses you will I curse, and thee and all thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. All right. So we're starting to witness what that first one, which was the Pharaoh of Egypt, that actually happens with. Now, before we go into that, let me take you, though, into this description of the way she looked. Hang on, get to the right one. Hang on 1 second. We got to pull this up. I think this is it. Yeah, this should be it right here. Okay, so Henosh is describing her beauty to the king at the time. He says, how splendid and beautiful is the image of her face, and how lovely her forehead, and soft the hair of her head. How graceful are her eyes, and how attractive her nose, and every blossom of her face is radiating beauty. How graceful are her breasts, and how beautiful her all-white complexion. And as for her arms, how beautiful they are, and her hands, how perfect they are. And every view of her hands is stimulating. How graceful are her palms, and how long, thin all of her fingers of her hands, her feet. How beautiful and how perfectly shaped are her legs, and there is not a virgin or a bride who enters the bridal chamber more beautiful than she. All right, now, oddly enough, like I said, this is in the Aramaic and not in the Hebrew language, but I do find it interesting that he does call her Bitulan, a virgin. Like the Hebrew word bitula, alma is what was used in Isaiah 9, and that was one of the big arguments. Let me just see if I can find that real quick too, because that's something else worth noting. Is the prophecy about Jesus and not Isaiah 9:6. 1 second. I want to make sure we find this, though. We'll go to eSword and look that up there. I want the scripture of a virgin shall conceive. Isaiah 7:14. I get that mixed up about the prophecy of Jesus himself, and so I tend to get that backwards here. Let's go down to it. Therefore the Lord himself shall send a sign. Behold, a young woman shall conceive. Okay, Alma. Hine ha'alma. And Alma being a young woman, and Bitula is a virgin. And when we come back, let me just double check over here where we're at. All right, and see right here, Bitulan, Bet Tav Vav Lamed Nun. That is literally a virgin. And how perfectly shaped her legs, and there is not a virgin or bride who enters the bridal chamber more beautiful than she. I tell you something, and it's pretty weird to say it, but it's almost as if Abraham had at this point, we might be able to argue that Abraham had not even been with his wife at this point, because she's referred to as a virgin, a Betulan, not an Alma, not a young woman. And a king would not be able to take her as a wife unless she was a Bitulan. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. Now, the other thing is even though they describe her in this way here, and how beautiful her all-white complexion, that's in verse 4. I highlighted it over here. Laha kol, and let me make that big enough, lavana, which is to her all white. Now, Daria, in Aramaic, it could be that this is the word that is being used there, which means beautiful. And to her all white beauty. Okay? And that may be very true and if you look at this as a whole of the translation of their description, but there is a notation in the book here about this, that this was a, let's see, because that's in through, oh gosh, hang on, sorry about that. 375 is what we want to look at. Martinez, they said this appears to be the case of a didography, which means that there was double letters in there. They believe that there was 2 dalits in there. And because we don't have the ability to look at the original transcript of this, I've actually wondered, could they have made mistaken this, and it's actually a zayin. A zayin looks almost identical to the dalit. And in one of these old scripts, if you go to looking at these, you can't help but wonder if that couldn't possibly be the case. Look at the way that some of the letters are. I mean, they're very difficult to distinguish, and that's on a good fragment right there. If we were to go and look at some of these other fragments, you know, they really become obscure, very difficult, like in this case here. How would you know for sure if you've got a dalit or a zayin or what? I mean, a lamed, obvious, because of the tall part there for the lamed, but there's just some cases that we just would not even know. And the problem is, see, like in this case here, you've got these fragments. They're trying to make it out. Every single little letter. That could be a mem. Could be a chet. Might be a nun. So it's very difficult to know for sure. And of course, they've got the different imagery. They've got all kinds of imagery that they can do this with. But my thought was, when I looked at this, it's talking about how beautiful was her all-white complexion. Well, they added the word complexion because the word complexion is not in the sentence at all. And then to go along with that, it's just saying to her was all white, and it could be beauty, but it could be descendants. Because if it's Zaria, that would literally make it exactly like that. It would be that not only are they describing her beauty, but they describe her complexion as if she is from a specific type of race of people. And when I say that, I don't mean this by any means of one race superiority. I don't believe that at all. I don't think that that's right to do. Even like when it comes to the Israelite people of today, Israelites are a mix of every people on the planet Earth. Even when they say that the Ashkenazi are Khazarians, well, even if they're Khazarians, really and truly, so what? It's only a mix of the bloodline. There are many Jews that are mixed in with the Iranians, with Hindus, with going all the way down into to Yemen, Saudi Arabia. The Jewish people have been scattered to all the world, so they're really mixed in every language, every culture under the face of the earth. But in this case here, one of my thoughts is that this may have it may be that their lineage is going right back to Abraham, not Abraham, but to the Garden of Eden, to Adam and Eve. Truly, they are a type of Adam and Eve. So could that have been a pure bloodline that has kept down all the way through, and that look just kind of has followed her along with it? 100%, she clearly looks nothing like the people that are considered to be Middle Eastern of that region. She is totally considered like unreal. And so it's just a conjecture. And I don't, like I said, I still 100% have no problem with Doria. In fact, when I did the 5 minutes left, I did not realize I'd been doing a lot of research on this, still had not come to a complete conclusion. I couldn't figure out what Doria really meant. And then I finally found out that it was, even in my early research, I did not realize that there was a word for beauty in Aramaic that did resemble. So it very well can be. And like I said, I have no way to see that original, so it makes that difficult as well. But nonetheless, here's what happens, though. As we look into this a little deeper, though, I told you that this is also fulfillment of Genesis 12. Those that bless you, I'll bless, and those that curse you, I'll curse. So they take her. He takes away his wife. And the king, she said, that's her brother, so he doesn't want to kill Abraham. He says, anyway, was not killed. I, Abram, wept bitterly, and I, Lot, my brother's son, with me. During the night, when Sarah was taken from me by force, during the night I prayed and entreated and asked for mercy and sorrow with tears streaming down. I said, blessed are you, most high God and Lord of all. Ages, for you are Lord and ruler over everything, and you are the ruler and kings over the earth, having power to enact judgment on all them. So now I lodge my complaint before you, my Lord, concerning Pharaoh, Zoan, king of Egypt, for my wife has been forcefully taken from me. Enact judgment against him for me, and manifest your mighty hand. Whoever blesses you will be blessed, and whoever curses you will be cursed. Against him and against all of his house, that he might not prevail this night in defiling my wife for me. And may they thus come to know you, my Lord, that you are Lord over all the kings of the earth. Notice that they may come to know you. Isn't that beautiful? That's because God told him, he said, all the families of the earth are going to be blessed in you. So I wept and became silent during the night. The Most High God sent to him a pestilent spirit to afflict him, and to every person of his household an evil spirit. And it was an ongoing affliction for him, for every person of his household, so that he was not able to approach her, nor did he know her. And she was with him for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years, he's being cursed because of Abraham, right? The afflictions and trouble grew heavier and more powerful over him and over every person of his household. So he sent a message to all the wise men of Egypt, to all the magicians, additions to all the physicians of Egypt, to see if they could heal him. And every person of his household of this affliction, but all the physicians and magicians and all the wise men were not able to restore him to health, for the spirit was afflicting all of them as well. So they fled. Then Harkanash came to me and asked that I come and pray over the king and lay my hand upon him so that he would live, for he had seen me in a dream. But Lot said to him, Abraham, my uncle, cannot pray over. Here we go now. Cannot pray over. Let me see. I may have not got this one up. Over the king while Sarai is with him. And now go tell the king that he should send his woman away from himself to her husband, so that Abram can pray over him and he may live. And now when Harkanash heard the words of Lot, he went and said to the king, all these afflictions and troubles that are afflicting and troubling my lord the king are due to Sarai, the wife of Abram. Return Sarah to Abraham, her husband, and this affliction and putrid spirit will depart from you. So the king called me and said to me, what have you done to me? On what account were you saying to me, she is my sister, when she was your wife? That is why I took her as a wife for myself. Here is your wife. Take her, go and get yourself out of, and we kind of get a pause right there. So now this is what happened to that man. The curse came upon him, fulfilling that, because why? She was a promised vessel. And even though she laughed, and even though Abraham laughed about their child that God was going to give them when he brought forth Isaac. Nonetheless, they were a type of Adam and Eve. They were a type of the coming Messiah, and it was to preserve that pure seed line that was to come forth. And for those of you, listen, and there's a lot of the black community today that believe that they are the true Israelites, well, there's your mother Sarah for you. And a lot of people try to say, oh, they're this and they're that and everything. Look, I would say this to my black brothers and sisters. God has given you the greatest gift of witnessing the gospel of Jesus Christ over every people in this nation. Do you know that 80% of black Americans profess to be Christians? That's a remarkable feat in itself. Why would you want to reverse that? Why would you want to go back under bondage? That's a lying spirit that's put that in your mind. I wouldn't want any part of it. Stay free. The greatest thing you could have ever done was to recognize that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Stay free is what I say to you. I wanted to just share this insight from this beautiful insight here from the Genesis Gospel and the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's just not been made known to the world. As it should be, I should say. It's not that it's not made known, it's just not been made known the way it should be. Anyway, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. Thank you for subscribing to Patreon. Share it with your friends. Love you, and thank you for being here.